Westeros was conquered by these two Targaryen blonde baddie bitches right here, along with the help of their socially awkward brother husband, Aegon. Say hi to Aegon. Hi. But while Rhaenys and Visenya were technically married to Aegon, is there a chance that that was all just a sham? Is that all just like a smokescreen, a lavender marriage, if you will? Because in actuality, the people who were actually in love were Visenya and Rhaenys over here, and Aegon was just being like a good, awkward brother, being like, yeah, well, fine, I'll marry you so you can be like, gay siblings together, whatever. If we're not going to be straight siblings married to each other, you might as well be gay siblings married to each other. It's fine. It can't be any weirder than like what this would have been, Now, if you're asking yourself, where the hell does this theory come from? Well, it comes from the fact that their collective marriage was kind of weird, and the historical details that we have about it just leave one having more questions than answers necessarily. The first big detail that clues us into something being just a little weird is the fact that there are actually 3 of them in a marriage. Now, I feel like because we all know Aegon the Conqueror and his sister wives, blah blah blah, it's led to the kind of misconception that the polygamy was kind of like a normal thing with the Valyrians, where it wasn't. It was an option, but it wasn't like a necessity. So by the time that Aegon marries Visenya and then says, oh, I'm actually going to marry Rhaenys too, that was actually kind of weird. That hadn't happened in a really long time. To my knowledge, if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think since the Targaryens had left Valyria, it had happened at all while they were on Dragonstone. Now, a lot of people want to explain this away with what the Maesters write about it, in that essentially Aegon married Visenya out of duty because she was the oldest one, and therefore the sibling that was matched to him by the conventions of age, but then he married Rhaenys out of love. So because he had to marry Visenya, he did it, but he actually wanted to marry Rhaenys, so that's why he married both of them. Now, you can take this and accept this, and that's totally fine, but I would point out that, once again, who is the person saying it? It's a Maester. And the Maesters have well-known biases in their, history-taking of this universe. One of the big ones being that they love Rhaenys and they fucking hate Visenya. So, explaining the point of their marriage away from the perspective of, oh, well, Aegon did what he had to with the evil one, and just so he could marry the good Queen Rhaenys, well, you can make some assumptions based on that. So we have kind of a strange marriage dynamic right from the beginning. And then the other just weird detail that clues us into what's going on here is the fact that no one has babies for a very, very long time. Because we can guesstimate that the 3 of them were married for probably at least a decade before they decided to do the whole conquering of Westeros. And then after the conquering of Westeros, neither of them get pregnant until year 7 and then year 12. So in total, that's 17-ish years after being married, and then 22-ish years after being married. And could there have been some fertility issues? Yes, of course, that is a big theory in the fandom that Aegon had some fertility issues. But is that the only possibility? No. And so one of the big assumptions in the idea that these two were together is that they were together that whole time, so they weren't really trying with Aegon. Aegon was just being there to be their beard. He wasn't actually trying to knock anyone up. And then it wasn't until he had been king for some time and people are starting to get really antsy about the succession that they all decide okay, well, let's try to make this happen. And this is a point I want to make with this theory, because I feel there's going to be a lot of pushback from people, and that is are there multiple explanations for a lot of these weird plot details? Absolutely. But I do think that it is legitimate to look at them all through a certain lens and see hey, if you look at it from this angle, all of these things could point to the fact that there is a real couple here and they are being covered for by the guy in charge, essentially. And we don't know enough about Valyrian kind of culture to know how they would have felt about homosexuality in general, let alone specifically lesbianism. But something that we can, I think, assume is that even if the Valyrians had like a positive view of varied sexualities, I don't know that the Targaryens at the point of these three existing would have, because these three were the last of that line. So even if like the Valyrians were like, LGBTQ positive, if every June they all their flags went to rainbows and everything, I think it still would have been a hard sell for like the only two daughters to be like, yeah, so we don't want to continue the Valyrian custom of marrying our brother and keeping the quote unquote bloodline pure so that they can all keep control of the dragons. That I think would have been a hard sell. Because remember, that is what was the most common. The brother sister, the interfamily marrying is the kind of common core of the Valyrian marriages, especially amongst those dragon riding families. And so because the Targaryens are the last ones, they are really trying to keep it within the family. The only times that they don't, the only times that like they are like marrying Valyrians every so often is when they don't have like a brother and sister pair or like a uncle niece pair, whatever. If they don't have like a pair that they can put together, that is the only time they look outside the family. And even then, they're trying to look at like who is the closest like related Valyrian type family to us, the Velaryons. So we can assume that like the pressure for at least Visenya to marry Aegon would have been extreme, and while like Rhaenys might have been able to like get out of it, maybe she didn't want to, because if these two wanted to be together, there wouldn't have been very many options, unless their brother is the one who is like agreeing to like make it happen for them. And then again, along with all just like the odd details of it all, we get to the actual death of one of these two. When Rhaenys passes away during the First Dornish War, it leads to big feelings, and it's not just Aegon that is like going out there and burning everything, as the Maesters like are really like heavily pointing out, because Aegon really loved Rhaenys. Aegon really loved Rhaenys more than anyone else, especially more than Visenya, because Visenya is so gross. But Aegon isn't the only one to freak out when Rhaenys passes away in Dorne. When he is down there burning it all up, Visenya is right there with him, just as ferocious, just as rage-filled, burning everything in sight. And so when you look at the fact that the Maesters are so like clearly trying to like pit these two women against each other, make them seem like they were at odds, and that Aegon was favoring one over the other, and that they were so different, it almost makes me think like, okay, but what are y'all hiding actually? Like, it's the fact that they're so blatant, that they're so biased, that makes me think that like there's like a big chunk of something that is missing here. And I think it is just as valid to assume that it's the fact that these two were the actual thing as any of the other theories for any of the other like bits of the weird details about the marriage between the three of them. Like I said, there would have been so much going against them from the very beginning, from the fact that like Valyrian women, Targaryen women, are needed to perpetuate this bloodline, that we don't even know if like old Valyrian customs would have accepted a pairing such as them. We don't know like why they were married for so long to their husband without anyone like at least like trying to get pregnant. We don't know like what was going on. Why are the three of them in a marriage when polygamy is very much not the custom at this point? And since it's Pride Month, it's because they're gay, obviously. And if you don't like that, boo-hoo. Go leave your tip at the door and then go be sad in a corner. I'll play Robin's Dancing on my own in just a second for you. Don't worry, babe. Anyway, please tell me which other queer characters or potentially queer characters do you want me to talk about for this Pride Month series. And yeah, please leave it in the comments, like all the buttons, do all the things. It helps. I'm trying to move across the country to Portland, Oregon. If you want to help me, pay for that, do all the buttons. Also, do you know like a job I might get that's like full-time, makes money, that's like good, and I won't hate myself? English degree. That's helpful, right? I don't know. Let me know about that in the comments too. We're all gonna crowdsource my move. I'm really excited about this. Okay, yeah, that's all I got. Have a great night. Goodbye, y'all.